muted. And we ask that you keep yourself on mute during the presentation. If you have comments, questions, please use the chat box and we'll keep track of that. And we'll also be dropping links in the chat for anything helpful for this meeting or links that could help you out. So before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the magnificent St. Louis River and estuary, that it's been home to the Anishinaabe people and the Dakota and Northern Cheyenne before them, a revered waterway known as Gitchigami-Zibi, or the Great Lake River. It holds great spiritual and personal significance for its original stewards, and we all benefit today from those who cared for the land, the air, and the water. We honor and respect them as custodians, past and present, and we also respect the science and knowledge that has been learned and passed down through thousands of years and continues to this day. The St. Louis River Alliance is a membership organization committed to connecting people to the river. And as we work to restore and protect it, we welcome you to join us and become a member if you're not already. If you are a member, thank you. To share more about our work and our vision, it's my pleasure to turn the screen over to our Executive Director, Chris Eilers.
Thanks, Andrea. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I just want to make sure I can, there I go. I wasn't able to advance my screen. And also, Andrea, can you watch the weight room and let people in? Or maybe there's a button you can click so everybody can just come in.
Sure.
Okay. Well, so tonight we are having our annual membership meeting, and we're doing it in a little bit different way than we normally do. But first of all, I want to introduce those of you who don't know who the Alliance is. And like Andrea said, we're a membership organization. And we are the original Citizens Action Committee that was created when the EPA designated the St. Louis River Estuary an area of concern back in 1987 to assist the Minnesota and Wisconsin state agencies with the remedial action plan at that time. We became a nonprofit in 1996, and since then we've been helping people connect to the cleanup process and the area of concern process, as we call it, ever since then. But over the years, we've grown and changed a little bit as the river has started to recover. And it's as the river has slowly responded to the cleanup, we're now able to focus more on the connections to the river. And that's really important to rebuild our relationships to the river. And with that goal, and one goal in mind is to help bring an awareness back to the river's value and to restore our relationships to it through our projects and events, and maintaining a balance and keeping it clean for generations to come. So as we go through our program tonight, we're gonna talk a little bit more about what we do. And we're gonna start off with Margie, and we will jump back to the Alliance a little bit later. Right now, I'm going to introduce Judy Gibbs, who is also a board member, and she's going to introduce Margie.
Technology when you're in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota someplace. Hi, my name is Judy Gibbs, and I have the pleasure of introducing Margie Menzies tonight as our speaker. I've known Margie for a very long time, and her career has spanned all kinds of education, whether it be formal in high schools, teaching high school science. She also right now is supervising student teachers at the University of Minnesota Duluth. She's worked for a very long time at Sugarloaf Cove Interpretive Center. And currently Margie is the education director at Hawk Ridge Nature Reserve. And both the St. Louis River and Hawk Ridge are designated as important bird areas. And Margie has done a lot of work doing lots of projects that she's going to tell you about tonight. So have at it.
Thanks, Judy. It's fun to be here, folks. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I'm being a good kid. Sharing my screen. There we go. There. And We will start the slideshow. Come on. There we go. So yeah, thanks for having me this evening. I'm Margie Menzies, the Education Director at Hawk Ridge Bird Observatory or Hawk Ridge Nature Reserve. That's the place. The organization is the observatory. There you go. Clarification stuff. Yeah, and what I'm going to do tonight is kind of give you a Margie's eye, bird's eye view of the St. Louis River birds. I will tell you that I'm going to come at this presentation as sort of a kind of a storyboard. I will tell you that I am not a massive photographer. So the photos that are in this are mostly from other folks. And I'll acknowledge those as we go a little bit. So I'm not a great photographer, nor am I a serious paddler. So a lot of you folks have probably spent more time on the river itself than I have. I can't say that I've explored every inch of the river, but I sure love it. And I enjoy chasing the birds. And I've done that as a naturalist from my sheer love of just being outdoors and being part of wherever environment I'm living in. And I've also done it as a researcher and a bird bander, and have been part of some of the research that's been happening on the St. Louis River, and as well as an educator doing field trips and teaching migration and raptors and birds to all ages. So kind of, there's going to be three threads that kind of run through there. So let's take a journey down the river, and we'll tell some bird stories as we go. And let me know if I'm getting long-winded, because it happens. So yeah, somebody give me a 5-minute warning. That would be really nice. So yeah, I think one of my first impressions with the St. Louis River, and I can't even honestly remember when it was, but I do remember going over the Oliver Bridge at some point early in my Duluth history and going, wow, this is an estuary. Holy moly, this is really cool. And at that time, I was sort of like, well, can there be a freshwater estuary? I'm used to thinking about them as saltwater, but there is, and there are, and here we are. Another way that I'm very familiar with the river and some of the places is because of this map that Duluth Audubon Society put out a number of years ago about birding in the Duluth area. And so many of these incredible birding locations are on the river. So if you, that's available online. If you can't find a hard copy these days, those are few and far between and hard to get a hold of. You can get to the online version. So yeah, we're just going to kind of take a cruise down the river. I'm not going to tell you, like I say, about every square inch. I haven't explored every square inch, but I will tell you some of the things that I've seen and I've done and how the birds relate to all of that. And this is a kind of a Google Earth map that looks at the whole thing. And you'll see this again because I've taken your maps out of the brochure and the booklet on the river, and we're just going to start up at A and kind of work our way through. So this first segment of the journey for me includes experiences and birds of the Chambers Grove vicinity, Perch Lake. I was just there Saturday afternoon. It was amazing. And then Boy Scout Landing. So let's go. Let's start at Chambers Grove. I think my favorite thing about Chambers Grove is every spring the pelicans come in. And this is one of the few Margie pictures of the story. And you will see why you don't get very many Margie pictures, because they're mostly like this, a long ways out and you can barely even tell they're pelicans. But there are others out there like Sparky Stensis, who graciously gave me permission to use some of those. Seeing pelicans on the wing. I was teaching preschoolers this morning, and sure enough, up at Twin Ponds, over went a squadron, and it's a squadron of pelicans flying over. There were about a dozen in this particular squadron, and I just love watching that long beak, big, bold body, and those black wingtips. And they're so graceful for such a huge, clunky bird. And it's wonderful to go down to Chambers Grove and watch them there. They stage in the river for about a month. So there's a period of time here, folks, where you can get lots of pelican experiences, and not just at Chambers Grove. There's lots and lots of other places, but this is one of my favorites to go check out every spring and watch those pelicans. You can see in this picture there, stretching out those beaks, and you're seeing the bumps on the tops of the beak that says they're in breeding season or getting ready for breeding season. They only have that this time of the year. So yeah, great fun to watch the pelicans. And like I say, it's one of my highlights of the spring. Perch Lake, I had a migration workshop that I taught for Hawk Ridge this last weekend, and we went and we stopped by Perch Lake on the way from Boy Scout Landing to Chambers Grove. And on the ice on Perch Lake, because yes, it is still frozen, or at least it was Saturday afternoon, there were pelicans, and along with the pelicans were 15 bald eagles sitting on the ice, just waiting, I think, for the weather to improve so they could get moving. But they were all sitting out there on the ice with pelicans, and it was something to see. Absolutely amazing. Boy Scout Landing came through with lots and lots of ducks for us on that day. Again, these are all Sparky photos. Some of my favorites on the river are the golden eyes. Here's the golden eye doing its mating ritual. They always tuck their heads back and look straight up to the sky. Must be something connected with that makes that such an effective wooing tool for the female golden eyes. Over here in the upper left or right-hand corner is one of my favorites. I love hooded mergansers, and there were just a bunch of them out on the river all weekend. We saw the hooded mergansers, and a lot of people confuse the hooded mergansers with the buffleheads. Difference being the hooded merganser can turn the hood on or turn the hood off, whereas the bufflehead has no option to do that. The other thing to look at is the body. The body on the bufflehead's a little lighter colored. On the hooded merganser, it's that lovely robin orange, rusty orange color. So keep an eye out for those guys. We saw wood ducks, we saw pied-billed grebes, blue-winged teal, and common mergansers were everywhere. And that's just a small section. There's never any shortage of ducks. And we were just, Saturday was, for those of you who remember, pretty ducky weather anyway. It was rained most of the day. It was a really hard day to be teaching an outdoor workshop, but we managed. And we were lucky to be able to do some of this later in the afternoon birding way back on this end of the St. Louis River. Moving into the next segment, this one has Boy Scout Landing still in it, but here's another of my favorite spots, Mud Lake. Now that sounds like a glorious place, right? Mud Lake. But it is, and it's actually one of my very favorite spots. And I've got a lot of familiarity with this site, not only from field tripping and working with folks out there, but also from the research perspective. We started, Hawk Ridge worked with the EPA lab here in Duluth back in 2017, and we were commissioned to band some songbirds during the breeding season. In fact, the hope was that we would get songbirds that had been born that year. And the idea was that we would take feather samples from these birds to analyze them for mercury accumulation. The hope was to get an idea of how much mercury is actually in the ecosystem and readily available for the birds. So we banded at a number of locations, and we were originally commissioned this map of the overall river system for the EPA is divided into 6 different sections, and we were commissioned to band at least in 1 or 2 places in each section. Well, we started trying to plan where we were going to band, because the bottom line was you got to catch some birds. And so we analyzed a lot of places, walked miles and miles of trail along the river, and finally ended up feeling like we had 5 locations that we could really use as good, viable banding locations. And they ended up being good spots for us. And Mud Lake was one of the best. Amazing diversity of birds there. And the banding that we did was in the latter part of the breeding season. Again, we were trying to catch those young birds, and we sampled at each location 2 different times. And so this is the collective number of birds. We banded a total of 110 birds between the 2 times that we were at Mud Lake, and nice diversity of stuff and some surprises in there. It is a very good wetland system, but we were picking up rose-breasted grosbeaks and Baltimore orioles, which are generally more upland species, but we were catching them down there in the Mud Lake wetlands. We spent a lot of time in chest waders and wandering around out checking nets, and also ran some right along the railroad track that runs through Mud Lake. That's a great place to go out and walk and check out who's in the area. Tons, right now there'll be tons and tons of birds, lots of ducks and lots of other birds moving into the area. But this list will give you an idea who the resident birds were during that time. A fair number of warblers, redstarts and warblers, Nashville warblers, common yellowthroats, lots of yellow warblers, mourning warblers. So a fair diversity of those classic wetland warblers, very well represented there. As it turned out, when we did the sampling of the mercury, American goldfinch ended up being the birds that had the highest levels of mercury, but it wasn't to the toxic levels. So that was the good news on that whole process. But it was fascinating. And like I say, I think we banded more birds at Mud Lake than we did anywhere else. So very fun. I've also taken a lot of field trips out there, and few years back, I did a workshop series on habitat birding, and the session had been about fields and meadows and wetlands. And I had done a pre-field trip session with everybody and told them what to expect at Mud Lake. And we went out the following Saturday, and it was just like, it's just like I was the magician. Over here's this one, and over here's this one, and over here's this one. Everything that I had talked about in class, we saw everything under the sun that day. There were sandhill cranes cruising down the river. There were tundra swans. There were great blue herons. And all of the other birds, the swamp sparrows and the common yellowthroats, all did their thing and sang beautifully for us. And suddenly, out of the clear blue sky, out pops a short-eared owl, and it made 2 circuits around and finally landed on this log. I felt like I had done something right in my life to actually be part of that. And everybody said, "Oh, Margie, we're going on more field trips with you." There was everything I had said, and then the bonus of the short-eared owl. I showed this picture to one of my cohorts at Hawk Ridge later on, and he said, "Oh man, you're one up on me. I've never," and he's a phenomenal photographer. He's like, "I've never been able to get close enough to even get remotely something like that out of a short-eared owl." So there we go. One of my favorite memories from Mud Lake. Great place to walk. Hint, know when the scenic railroad on the western part of the circuit is running. They tend to run only in the fall, so you can usually hike out there. The other thing is that area has had poor stewardship as far as local people, and there's been a lot of trash dumping and things like that, and it's recently been posted as a no trespassing, but some of our birders have been in there and they've gotten permission from the CNN rail folks, who are the ones that are running security out there, and the birders are okay, just so long as you don't park on the roadway. Just make sure you're out of there and you can bird in there to your heart's content. This particular section of the river, we went to the Spirit Lake Marina thinking we could find a place to band in there, and it just didn't work for us. So we didn't band in that neck of the woods. This spot out here is a little itty bitty island off Clough Island, and it's been home for years to a bald eagle nest. But interestingly enough, and we can see that from the count location that we use on Thompson Hill when the wind's blowing really hard off the lake, we've been watching that nest, and oddly enough, that nest has been taken over by Canada geese. Not entirely sure it's the most practical stuff because it's way up in a tree, but they have taken that over and they are currently nesting there again this year up in the old eagle nest and raising their young. I don't know if they're successful in raising their young and getting them to the water safely after raising them way up in the tree. On into the next section, the last official section from the river trail map. This is Indian Point and Kingsbury Bay and Grassy Point. And it turns out we banded in both of those locations, and I also use particularly Indian Point and the Western Waterfront Trail frequently for field trip locations. Here's the birds that we banded at Indian Point. In the 2 sessions that we banded at Indian Point, we spent two different times there and banded more in the Kingsbury Bay vicinity and banded a total of 71 birds. Nice cross section. And here's an oddball. The blue-gray gnatcatcher. That is not a bird that we see frequently up in this neck of the woods. And we banded one right out there in the middle of the marshland. There it was. Oddly enough, I hadn't been out to Indian Point in the last couple of years much at all, and hadn't walked the section of trail that we used when we were banding. But I had the field trip group out there the other day, and I took them out that way because I wanted to see if we could find any rails. Well, yeah, things have changed at Kingsbury Bay. Here's some historic pictures of what Kingsbury Bay looked like in 1948. So it was definitely a more open water system, but over the years it choked in largely with non-native cattails, the narrow-leaved cattail, and it was great habitat for the rails. But when I was walking there the other day with the crew, I was like, okay, let's go see if we can find some rails. Well, I kept waiting for the cattails to show up and they never did. Finally dawned on me that the bay had been cleaned out and now is open. So it's been a little bit since I was in there. So yeah, the rail habitat has been temporarily destroyed, but there were a ton of great birds in there. Again, lots of ducks, we also saw a number of shorebirds, classic shorebirds that you're likely to see this time of year. Killdeer, of course, and golden or yellow legs. This is a greater yellow legs. These are all Sparky stensis pictures, by the way. And this one has a telltale tail bob. This is a solitary sandpiper. And yeah, you can watch them, and the tail bob is a dead giveaway. They're constantly bobbing their tails as they stand there. So it's a very easily identified shorebird, which is a nice thing in the shorebird world if you've tried to do any ID on shorebirds. Grassy Point is another area that's under reconstruction. I don't think it's quite as far along as Kingsbury Creek area in the bay is. We did band at Grassy Point, and I remember Grassy Point more because we had a fair number of birds in there, but we banded some grackle in there. We banded a lot of red-winged blackbirds. And again, the classic wetland warblers, yellow warblers, common yellowthroats, swamp sparrows, song sparrows, all of the normal folks in there. This is a picture of a swamp sparrow, just for fun, and lots of red-winged blackbirds. This is a fun area to explore. It's, like I say, still under construction. It used to have some nice floating dock areas, and I think the plan is to restore some of that, is my understanding, since I haven't been out there in the real recent past. The last I heard is it's still not in particularly good shape, but it's on its way back. Now we're going to get past the trail maps and into the main part of the river, or at least the last part before it exits. So we've got a few spots in here. We'll check out Interstate Island and Herding Island, or the Southworth Marsh and Park Point recreation spot. And also we did some banding over on Wisconsin Point on Alloway Bay. So quickie spot here, Interstate Island. Up until last year, this might have been something you could have seen from the High Bridge. It's well known as a great spot for gulls to nest. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pairs of ring-billed gulls nest out there, along with a few herring. And in addition to that, there are common terns. And in the world of common terns still are the most common species of tern that you see in North America. But in the Great Lakes, their habitat has largely been interrupted and definitely compromised. And so common terns are not so common anymore on the Great Lakes. And here on Interstate Island is one of two populations on Lake Superior nearby. So yeah, some places where historically they aren't anymore. So they've done a lot of really good work in the last year to really build up that island, get rid of the trees. And here's the old view. And unfortunately, these pictures look in opposite directions. So this one's looking towards the Bong Bridge. This one's looking towards the High Bridge, but they have added a whole lot to the island. And this middle section where you see kind of the rows there, that is the section that is fenced and webbed so that the common terns can get in there, and they're a little smaller than the ring-billed gulls. So the ring-billed gulls can't get in there and they can't predate the nests. So we're hoping for great things as they continue to work on the common terns. Cruising on over to Southworth Marsh on the way out on Park Point. Another great hip wader spot, or a chest wader spot. We were out a lot, but we had a good time out there. And amazing number of American goldfinches and cedar waxwings out there in the wetland, and just a fascinating place. Even a downy woodpecker, who would have thunk it, out there in amongst the cattails. So yeah, we banded a total of 48 birds in 2 sessions out there, and really enjoyed that exploration. It definitely didn't look like a place where there was a lot of human interaction, which was kind of nice to see. Park Point Recreation Center, I took a bunch of people out there really, really early Saturday morning this week. It was amazing. The Trumpeter Swans were out there. There was at least a dozen or so out there, and they were all perched out on the ice. They're huge. Standing next to them were Canada geese. And we think about the Canada geese as being bigger birds, but compared to a Trumpeter Swan, nothing doing. They're, half the size. We saw redheads and canvasbacks out there that day. Secret of telling the difference between the canvas and the redheads is to look at those heads. Canvas have pretty much that nice straight flat face coming off, and the redheads have a nice little dip down there. These guys tend to be a little grayer along the side than the canvas as well. We had a really fun little look at a rusty blackbird down there, definitely a migrant coming through. And the resident Merlin down there gave us a show. I was just telling folks there's a Merlin down here, and right about that time, out came the Merlin. And definitely gave everybody a really good look. So that's something to see. And all the other songbirds that had just started, there were kinglets in the trees everywhere that morning, and all got real silent as the Merlin made its morning rounds. Then on the Wisconsin side, we were out at Alloy Bay and banded out there as well. That was one of our tougher spots. We banded 48 birds there as well, but it just didn't feel quite as rich as some of the other habitats that we visited. So yeah, that's a little bit about the banding sort of thing. And like I say, mostly what we found in this study of the mercury in the birds was that most of them were not at high toxic levels of mercury, which was really good news. Piping plovers, there are some of you in the audience here that can definitely say more about piping plovers than me. Piping plovers are another bird of traditionally of the shoreline of the St. Louis River and the Big Lake itself. And those have not bred in any way in Duluth in the last few years. We're hoping they're having some success in Wisconsin and in Michigan with these birds, and we're really hoping that we will get them going. And I know, Chris, you can talk about this much more than I, but I do know, here's an insider tip. I don't know if you guys know this or get the same circuits of news that I get, but there was a piping plover out on Park Point and seen last week on Friday, I think, or Saturday. And so that's good news. Good news. It was there all day. So I know that from the hotline that says, okay, it's out there. Hopefully, knock on wood, it'll stay and find a partner. I thought I'd tuck a little bit in here. One of my other favorite things is watching the migration along the river. And so I thought I'd just give you a quick shot of what's happening with the spring migration from Hawk Ridge's perspective. We count all the birds. So all of the things that are flying through, we see. And I stuck this map in because this is the fall site, but in the spring, we don't count there. We count either at Inger Tower or up at Thompson Hill. When we're up at Thompson Hill, that's where we can see the eagle nest and Clough Island and the geese nesting on the eagle nest. And then we see a lot from We're here if the wind's blowing really hard off the lake from the east or the northeast, and here the rest of the time. So today we were out on Thompson Hill. Here's some of the crew, the spring raptor count. Yeah, what does your definition of spring go? I don't know that we've seen it yet here really in the Northwoods, but we do the count from March the 1st through the end of May. And typically on average, we see about 26,000 raptors and many, many other birds as well. So the spring count has been going. We're starting to get into the late season, but just to give you an idea, when does spring migration start? Well, if you're an eagle, it starts in late February. Bald eagles will start. Many of them haven't migrated very far south and some not at all. WLSSD along the river is a great place to look for bald eagles all winter long. And this year is no different. The birds were coming through and bald eagles did just a phenomenal job this year. Patrick's Day, St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March, we set a whole new North American record for the most bald eagles seen in migration on a single day. It blasted the old record by 130 birds. So the total that day in a single day on St. Patrick's Day, the eagles knew how to celebrate 1,206. So that's pretty exciting. Bald eagles are a huge success story post DDT. At least for now, they're doing well. We hope that we will really win the Get the Lead Out campaign, because so many bald eagles are suffering from lead poisoning. The Raptor Center says now that 80 to 90% of the birds that they see bald eagle wise have some variation of lead poisoning. And for so many of them, it's too late. All they can do is gently euthanize them. So yeah, if you know anybody that's still using lead bullets and lead fishing stuff, just go to work on them. It's just silly that we haven't taken care of that problem before now. So if we're not careful, those bald eagles are going to be back in the not so successful thing if we don't get the lead out. But anyway, side soapbox thing there. All right, so challenge yourself quickly. There are 4 birds in here. I will tell you that these are trumpeter swans. This is an osprey. This is a harrier, and this is a red-tailed hawk. Put them in order. I always say that spring migration is like a parade. Tell me who's going to be first, second, third, and fourth in your mind. Do that quickly. Give you a second here. What do you think? Everybody good? All right, here we go. Who's number 1? Who's the first one in the parade? That would be those trumpeter swans. They are early migrants and they're coming through first. Second is going to be the red-tailed hawks. Third, northern harriers, and osprey. They're a later variety. They come much later in the parade. They're almost at the end because they are waiting for the ice to clear on the lakes. Same as the pelicans. So yeah, here's the count summary so far for the season. We've counted 81 species. So far, 22,154 birds, or at least as of yesterday when I did this. Today was a good flight day. There were a lot of Broadwing Hawks that came through. And we were up at Thompson Hill because the wind was blowing out of the east all day. I always love to look at the top 10, and one of our apps on the page shows you the top 10 birds. Here they are. Bald eagles are winning the top spot at 3,968, followed by red poles and all the way down. Broadwing Hawks are on the bottom here at number 11. That's not the very bottom. There's all kinds of other stuff in here, but I stuck them in at 11 because usually the Broadwings win the most birds prize. But last year we had a rather unusual candidate win the top number of birds seen for the spring at Hawk Ridge. And it was not a raptor. It was Bohemian waxwings. So my guess is, and here's my prediction, you can make whatever bets you want to make on that. I guarantee you probably won't make much out of it, but the bird that I think that's going to win it this year, I think is going to be the common redpoll. They've been coming through. We counted more than 40,000 in the fall coming through as part of fall migration. That's my prediction. The number one at the end of the season, at the end of May the 31st, the common redpolls will occupy the top spot. That's my prediction. So we'll see if I end up being right. Here's kind of the parade and who comes when. The green is the adults in the spring. The adults come first and the juveniles come later, if at all. In the case of osprey, the young osprey don't come at all. They stay down on the Gulf and don't do the migration until they're ready to breed. Fascinating stuff. But in the fall, it's the reverse. We see the juvenile birds first as they're taken off on their first migration, need a little boost to get through. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So there's kind of a rundown of the Raptor Parade, and I can highlight it for you. At the beginning, we have the eagles, bald eagles, golden eagles, rough-legged hawks, and northern goshawks are usually the first birds we see in the spring. In the raptor world. Next in the crowd comes a couple of falcons. We've got kestrels and peregrines coming, as well as sharpshin hawks and Cooper's hawks coming in the next wave of the parade. In the middle of the parade, we're going to get the kestrels, the turkey vultures, red-tailed hawks, and northern harriers. And finally, the end of the parade, Broadwing hawks and osprey. Like I say, today was a good Broadwing movement. In fact, Sunday this week was the first big pitch of Broadwings we'd have for the season. Mostly before that, for a couple of days, we'd seen like one or two coming through, but now they're coming through in big waves. So that's exciting. The birds are telling us it's spring, even if the weather won't do it. Here's kind of the raptor thing. We're at 7,689, or at least we were on the end of the day yesterday. I didn't get today's in there. So yeah, hopefully I haven't taken more than my allotted time here. Hopefully you've had fun adventuring with me on the St. Louis River. Thanks for the opportunity to talk birds. I always love talking birds. And yeah, if we've got questions, I'm happy to answer what I can.
Thanks, Margie. Yeah, we'll have a few questions here. First of all, I'm going to just read. Margie, Alyssa wanted to know if you have that graph posted anywhere that showed the different times of migration.
That's on my to-do list to get it up on the website. If anybody wants that one, send me an email and I'll email it to you. And it's mmenzies@hawkridge.org. You can find me on the website too, but I do mean to get that one up on the website. We have one for the fall, but we didn't have one for the spring until I made it. I was like, okay, we got to do this. So happy to share that, but it currently isn't on the website, but it's on the get it on their to-do list. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Doug would like to know, can you describe the Thompson location for birding? And also great info.
Thank you. Thompson Hill, that is West Skyline Parkway, and it is just below the rest stop. It's actually on the road and there's a nice overlook there. Yeah, wear all your layers when you go to Thompson Hill because it's blowing cold off the lake.
I have a couple of comments while we're waiting. If you have more questions, type them into the chat and we will ask the question. My comment is, yes, we did hear that there was a piping plover on Minnesota Point. And I can, when I do my presentation, I can say a little bit more about the piping plover, but do we know if it looked like it could have been a female or a male, or did anybody get photos of it? Do you know?
I don't know if anybody, I'm sure there were some photos and Chris, I can connect you with who the people were that made those observations.
I got an email from somebody, but he didn't have a photo. Yeah, any information is great. We are also starting to monitor out. We're starting to monitor. So I think we did send somebody out to Minnesota Point, and when we get to my section, we can talk a little bit more about that too, but thank you.
Yeah, I know Frank Nicoletti was in the middle of all of that. Mike Hendrickson was also involved.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doug Jensen would like to know, he said, I don't recall a spring when so many redpolls and juncos have stayed so late. Is this unusual, or do you have any insights?
You betcha. It's called cold. It's been really funny when we're doing counts at the spring count. We see bazillions of robins go by, and then we get another one of those series of snowy, squally period of time, and they all go south again. They turn around and they go back. And there's a number of species of birds that do that. It's just like, okay, I came too soon. I'm going back.
Not a bad idea.
No, and many of the birds have just hung much longer because of that. We just haven't broken this cold cycle at all enough to move them on, but they'll go soon enough. Although the latest from the Weather Service says May is going to be cold too. Ah!
Oh no.
Yeah.
Michael Wood says, I saw my first golden crowned sparrow in my Superior backyard. I thought they were only on the West Coast. Have you seen them?
I have not, but I've heard reports of them a couple of times in this neck of the woods, and birds are shifting, partly with climate change kinds of things, and partly just some of the birds are just moving into new locations. For example, red-bellied woodpeckers, we used to never see them, and now they're fairly common in this area. So yeah, I can't say one way for sure on those sparrows, but I do know that there have been several recordings of them in the recent years. So that's about all I can contribute at that point.
Okay, I have a comment about and a question about the geese taking over the eagle's nest. Is that, and that is on the island next to Clough Island? Is that what you're talking about? Okay, so did they actually, do you think that they moved the eagles off, or did the eagles abandon it? Or what do you think happened there?
Well, you know, this apparently happens fairly frequently, and a lot of times it is because the eagles have abandoned it. Another birder told me the other day about Talus Island, and they said there was an eagle perched close to the nest on the ground of the Canada goose. In fact, the Canada goose was so upset about that eagle being perched there, it dive bombed it once, dive bombed it again. That didn't do it, so it came at it and hit that bald eagle with both feet full bore and knocked the bald eagle off the branch.
and the eagle didn't do anything to it? Apparently
not.
It could have taken swift action, I'm guessing, but they didn't.
Could have, but bald eagles are, honestly, they're more like turkey vultures than they are like eagles. So the only one that they really seriously compete with are the osprey. They're always stealing the osprey's fish. In fact, the population of osprey is going down so dramatically in the east that there's a hypothesis that the bald eagles are actually out competing them for food.
Wow.
So, yeah, interesting stuff going on.
Thank you. That's kind of, I spent a lot of time out in that area and watch, I've gotten out of my kayak lots of times and walked very timidly around that little island because the eagles are right there and they squawk at you quite a bit if you get too close, but that's some great information. Is there we have time for one last question. Is there any other questions?
Sure.
Okay, Bill Majewski. Oh, we might have two. Bill Majewski says, my son has been watching the Decorah bald eagles nest for a couple of years. This year, a Canadian goose is nesting on it. Also, you didn't mention cardinals or goldfinches.
Goldfinches are a normal part of things. They usually, from all my years of banding for educational programming at Hartley, most years the goldfinches are back by middle of March, late March into April, and they were much later this year. They're definitely here. Cardinals are one of those birds that has moved into this region, was not historically here in a big way, and it's only been in the last 10 years or so that they've been big forces. They are a bird that associates well with humans, and they're becoming more of a force. But yeah, they should be here all winter long, and I haven't seen much lately, but that doesn't mean they aren't here.
Okay, thank you. Also, Doug Jensen has another comment or question. When are you expecting bluebirds to return this year? My dad, who has raised bluebirds since the early 1970s, did not have any return last year, neither the mature adults in April or young adults in June. We understand that the ice storm from 2 years ago took a heavy toll. Any comments on that?
Bluebirds are thrushes, and the thrushes tend to come earlier, but I just saw my first hermit thrushes, which are usually the first of the major ones besides robins, to come back. And I just saw my first hermit thrush of the year on Sunday morning. So they're just working their way this way. So let's cross our fingers and hope those bluebirds are not far behind.
Okay, one more question from Andrea Kraus. Have you heard about any waterfowl or other birds affected by avian flu in our area?
Not as of yet. One of the things that goes with avian flu, it needs warm weather and moisture. We've got the moisture, but we don't have the warm weather yet. So far, knock on wood, we're okay. But this is definitely something that we all want to watch carefully. And my cautionary note to all of you would be, if you do see dead birds, call the DNR. Don't try and handle it yourself. You really need protective gear and full, almost hazmat suit if you want to avoid, because avian flu will pass between humans and birds. Most birds are not very rich in diseases that they share with us, but avian flu is one of them. So please, please, please use care.
Thank you. Okay, well, that wraps this part of the program up. Margie, thank you so much for all of the great photos and your presentation. And while we have a lot of information here, and hopefully people will be able to go out and look a little bit, look at things a little differently and all that. So I am going to move ahead then and go back to sharing my screen. And I'm going to introduce Joel Vicra. He is our acting board president at the time, and he's going to talk a little bit about membership.
Well, hi, everyone. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, Chris, can you change it to not share screen and just go to like a gallery view?
Yes, I can.
That was super cool, Margie. Early on in the presentation, all those maps, many of you probably already know this, but as you looked, there were all these different colored dots going around in loops in those different spots where Margie was describing seeing different birds, and that's the National Water Trail. And that's, it's really exciting, that so many decades of work now, working cleaning up the river to the point where we can say, hey, go check it out. Look at all these great places and some of these things that have been, I think, well hidden secrets. Now there's like the key to discover the secrets, or there's like the treasure map to find those places. And I know I'm going to be trying some of those loops looking for the birds you were talking about, Margie. So what I was hoping to do, we're a membership organization, and we call it our theory of change, but the basic idea is that the more people get out there and see the river, the more they're going to care about it and become advocates for it. And that will help us as a community to take better care of the St. Louis River. And so that's a big part of, originally it was about getting people's voice into the cleanup and getting the voice of all kinds of different folks in different places and different perspectives. And now it's about sort of the same thing, but to enjoy the river and to preserve the river and to really to recreate on the river and to contribute to the river's resilience. We face, I think, different challenges, or we will continue to face different challenges with climate change. And we would just want people to be out there and seeing things. I do think the birding is like maybe one of the most interesting sort of indicators where, you're able to see the fingerprints of climate change in a really granular way. Anyway, what I want to try and do is try and get everyone on the screen, and you might have to go, just so we could all like say hi to each other. If you go up to the right hand corner, there's a button that says view, and you go to gallery. And then if you'll indulge me for just a second and start your video, which is in the left hand corner, we can just like wave to each other. Oh, hey, people are doing it. This is great. Look at all these good people.
Yay.
So
That's
my
your
dream for
faces.
this, when you're at a wedding and the cheesy DJ is like, every married couple get out on the floor. And then they're like, everyone who's been married more than 5 years, stay out on the floor. And they go all the way up. And at the end, it's like the couple that's been married for 55 years. I wanted to do that with membership because I know there's some new people, and I see at least one person who's been here, who's a founder of the organization. So if you are currently a member of the organization, would you just raise your hand? Yes, and you can like scroll. There's actually too many screens to see everyone. Okay, if you've been a member for more than 3 years, keep your hand raised in the air. All right, there's still a good number of hands. More than 5 years. I think I'm right at 5 years. Anyone more than 10 years? Doug Jensen, Bill Majewski, anyone more than 15 years? Still?
Yeah.
What number do I have to go to?
You can
Oh, you're
unmute.
muted. 20
You want to
years?
unmute Bill and Doug?
No, I go
I'm
all the
not
way back.
sure exactly. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I go all the way back to the beginning.
1987, right? The first meeting at Denfeld High School.
Yep.
Yes, and I was also there.
All right.
Goodness gracious,
You
that's
can't get any
35
earlier
years.
than that. Thank
Tie.
you so much.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my camera is disabled. It's Tim Larson, but I remember canoeing, and I remember going to Willmonger's place by Indian Point. So that went back to 2000 or so, and we used to be able to swim at on Clough Island. It was pretty neat.
Thank you, Tim.
You still can.
Yes, I swim there all the time.
You're not worried about a Canada goose hunting you from that high nest?
Well, now you probably have to.
I was more worried about the eagles, but
I remember one year that there must have been a seiche or something, but again, you could see your feet 5 feet down. It was really clear.
Yeah, the tannin water is usually darker.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess my task was to talk about the importance of membership, and I'll tell you, it's very important. It is, it's how we build that community of people who care about the river, and how we connect to a broader community of people who care about the river. And so we hope that you all as members will also reach out to your friends. We're going to be doing a lot of really fun stuff this sort of non-ice season, we'll call it. We're already, I think we're kind of 2 months into some really cool talks, and there's going to be more to come. So I hope that you will look at those and then invite people you think might enjoy them. And I will also say that membership is really important for us. It's also incredibly affordable, which is a good pitch to your friends. And it also gives me the chance to offer you the pitch that if you would like to donate more money, we can use it. So we keep membership super accessible, but we are a nonprofit organization, and it takes a lot of funding to do the work we do. So we always invite and welcome and encourage donations. So
Joel,
now I will hand it back to
Joel, can I make a comment?
Please.
I was going to say, even if you're a single person, take out a family membership.
That's a good idea.
Excellent.
Or if you're a single family, take out a corporate membership.
Right. Yeah. Better yet. Yeah.
Alyssa has, or Andrea and Alyssa have put some links in the chat, so you can check those out. Otherwise, if you can't get to those, you can go to our website, stlouisriver.org, and find the button in there. And so thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. Also, shout out to Bill Majewski, who is a longtime board member and a longtime board president, for keeping things going, and for all you other people just for showing up tonight. And I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. So I'm going to go back to share my screen because I'm going to talk about what we've been doing. And I think I'm going to jump through some of this stuff here because we've already done, I've already talked about some of this, but so again, the Alliance is a membership organization, and how we are connecting people to the river is through some of our programs and events. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see the National Water Trail. We have some habitat projects. We do stewardship events. We are an area of concern partner, and we also work on other events to help connect people to the river. Our vision is to, we envision a clean and healthy St. Louis River with a thriving ecology, economy, and community. And the river in every community, if there's a river, the river is the connecting force for the community. So with that in mind, that's what we are going to continue to do. And here's what we've been doing. So I want to just say thank you. We have had some interns. We've been really lucky to have some great interns over the last few years. Last year, Emma Stadelman did amazing work with us. And I don't think she's on the call tonight, but thank you, Emma. And also we have Sienna Prom. I did see her. So thank you so much, Sienna. Sienna is also going to be a piping plover monitor. And she was also dressed as the piping plover in the middle here. And when we, those, a couple more pictures, I think, coming up here when we did our sustainability drive this last fall. And I would like also to thank the staff. We have Carson Main, Tanya Kittleson, and Alyssa Johnson. And thank you so much. Alyssa, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the work. I was out for a couple of months due to heart surgery this last year. And so Alyssa and the board members and also Tanya came to the rescue and just worked on a lot of stuff. We have some great volunteers, Jan and Carl Olson are longtime members, and Suzanne Hansen, also a longtime member. And one of our, these three actually are some of our oldest, longest running volunteers. So this was just helping out with a mailing that we did this last year, but they were also piping plover volunteers. Also, thank you to the board for picking up and taking over and doing some really important work, and for all of your time. We have Judy Gibbs, Joel Vicra, Courtney Kowalczyk, Andrea Kraus, and Libby Bent. And Holly Johnson, who was with us up until last year. She is not on the board any longer, but we want to thank Holly for her work. So 2021 in review. Now, we didn't have a membership meeting the last few years, so we just wanted to let you guys know what we've been up to, and then what we're going to be doing in the future. Some of our stewardship events we had in 2020, we did right before the pandemic hit, we did a winter walk out on Wisconsin Point. And those always draw a lot of people. We've had in the past years, this is something we do annually. And we really have been getting a lot of people coming out to these things. So that was super fun. And then this last spring, a year ago, we did a cleanup at Miller Creek and had a nice bunch of people, and there was quite a bit of stuff down in there, and we pulled tires and all kinds of stuff out of there. So then in the fall in 2021, we did our Vista Star Boat Tour, and that has been an annual event. We had beautiful weather. It did rain a little bit, but boy, we had that rainbow, and we toured around and we saw some of the projects that have been going on in the estuary, and we have people talk about that. We also had our annual canoe trip at Woodstock Bay over on the Wisconsin side, and we had to change the course that we were going to take because the wind was whipping really hard. But Woodstock Bay is a great place to go put in over there. You can find that on the map, on the National Water Trail map. Because there are so many sheltered areas, we were able to not change our put in spot, but we changed where we went in that area based on which direction the wind was coming. And you always want to keep that in mind when you're going out on the water trail, because there's big water out there and you need to be flexible and make safe decisions. We do outreach, and we had some tabling events that we were at. Usually we go to Lake Superior Days. There's a bunch of different ones that we go to. Most recently, we went to the St. Louis River Estuary Summit. We also in 2020 had a virtual art show because people weren't getting together physically. We wanted to keep people interested and engaged with the river, so we had an art show online. And in 2020, we also created a new website, thanks to some photography we had done. And also Alyssa, our development director, did like most of the web design on that. So thank you. We also created a new video series, and you can find our videos on our website. There's some really great tools to use. If you're talking to people about the river, you can direct them to our videos on our website. We also did Seasons of the St. Louis River photo contest in 2021, and that is through a contract that we do with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the other area of concern coordinators. Here's some other tabling events, and then the National Water Trail is one of our programs, and I don't have a lot of time to give a lot of history on this, but back in 2015 and 16, the city of Duluth got together and got a bunch of stakeholders together and started working on the possibility of creating an application for the National Water Trail. And so over a bunch of years, getting together with stakeholders from both sides of the river, and agencies and state and local agencies, we submitted an application to the National Park Service, and there was a consultant hired. There's a master water trail plan that is, you can find on our website, also on the City of Duluth's website. After many years of, actually the National Water, or the National Park Service recommended to the Secretary of the Interior to designate this as an official water trail. And after 3 years, it finally was signed by the Secretary of the Interior in 2020. So the Alliance was then asked to be the managers of the water trail. So that's what we've been doing. And we do this in the capacity of it just works out perfectly for us because we're networked in with everybody already. So we facilitate an advisory council, and that is made up of a bunch of different agencies and people who actually do work on the river. So in 2020, we received the national designation. It's listed on the National Park Services. And we also created some maps, and those are, the first edition is almost gone. And so we are creating a new map. We also have a contract with Wisconsin DNR, and we've been doing this for about 8 years now. And we plant wild rice. We've planted wild rice near Clough Island about 7 years, I believe. And then in 2021, we planted at Kingsbury Bay after they got done with the project there. The Minnesota DNR did the restoration project there that Margie was talking about, and she had some pictures of that. So they wanted to get some seed in there right away. So we changed course where we were going to plant around Clough Island, and we went to Kingsbury Bay instead and planted there. So that is a volunteer opportunity for people. We also have another contract through the Wisconsin DNR for the piping plover habitat on Wisconsin Point on the bay side there. You can find more information out about that habitat project that was done 2 years ago, was completed 2 years ago, and the habitat out there was increased. It's one of the last places that piping plover actually nested, but there has been no nest since the 80s. And so we continue to work on increasing the habitat. And the Alliance works on just the habitat part there. We're in charge of doing some site evaluations and making sure that the site features are as they are supposed to be beneficial for the piping plover. And we also have had a contract with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife since 2012, when I was actually hired as the program manager for the piping plover program. So we've been working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife ever since then. And we do monitoring on Minnesota Point and Wisconsin Point, but we are now more focused on Wisconsin Point because of the habitat work that was done there. The piping plover is a critically endangered shorebird. And like I said, it has not nested here since the 1980s, but it's a really important stopover site for the piping plover. They go back and forth between Minnesota Point and Wisconsin Point. And we are very hopeful because of the increased habitat that, and it's a little bit more protected on the Wisconsin Point side that is fenced in and managed by the Wisconsin DNR. So we are hopeful that we are going to get a nest there soon. We also had, we do get different groups that ask us for volunteer work. So we had the UMD volunteers come out and in 2021 and do a nice cleanup out there. I believe that was in the spring. We also have a contract with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to help connect the community to the work being done by the agencies in the area of concern. So we are still involved in that. And that contract looks like we do social media updates for them. We have some events that we hold, celebration of progress. This next year is going to look a little bit different for the next 5 years, but mostly it's making sure that we're making the community aware of the projects that are happening out in the estuary and what the progress is on those projects. Other parts of our work is to do, we did a sustainability drive and we had some great events this last fall. We had a bunch of really cool events. So we had one at Bent Paddle and we did this one at Ursa Minor outside. And we had Pat the Piping Plover come visit for this one as well. And we had some great food and some fires and marshmallows. We also were the Whole Foods Roundup recipient last year, or actually 2 years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And we are also right now currently for this last week of April, for the month of April, we are the Whole Foods Roundup recipient again right now. And then up at Mount Royal, we are the recipient there too. So if you're going grocery shopping or make it a point to go grocery shopping, you can always round up for us at those two places right now. All right, so in 2022, what are we gonna be doing? So we are working right now on Water Trail map sponsorships. I believe the deadline is coming right up on that. If you do want to be a sponsor, we have some spots open for $100 bronze sponsors on the map. You get your name on the map. So that would be super. If you want to do that, you would have to let us know by, I think it's noon tomorrow. So you can give us, email us or get a hold of me somehow. In May, we're doing another Water Wednesday series, the history of the estuary. That'll be great. I don't have the date on this slide, but you can get that off of our website. And then over the summer, we're going to be doing some community paddles on the water trail. So you can look for that information posted on our website or on our Facebook page. In August, we will have our annual canoe trip. And in September, we will have wild rice planting. And we do take a few people for that for volunteers. And it's a really special opportunity. There'll be a little program that will have somebody come and talk about the importance of wild rice culturally and environmentally. So some of the contracts that we have are some of the same ones we've had in the past. So U.S. Fish and Wildlife piping plover monitoring season begins this next week, and the monitors have been hired for the season, and they are starting to train tomorrow. National Water Trail, we are going to be printing new maps, and that is in the works right now. And we have a Minnesota DNR coastal grant to create a 5-year action plan from the master plan and also to work on this map. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, we have a 5-year contract starting next year, probably next week. I mean, we'll be doing more neighborhood outreach in the West Duluth neighborhoods with this one. So we will be reaching out into neighborhoods and creating some events and finding out what kind of water connections people want to make. Also 2 contracts through the Wisconsin DNR. One is the establishment phase at Wisconsin Point, piping plover habitat. And that looks like we will have some volunteer events to do. We'll be doing hand pulling of unwanted vegetation out there. And we will be doing some driftwood cleanup and possibly some lighting that on fire. So, and maybe some another cleanup. So you can look for our announcements about that if we need help out there. The Wisconsin DNR, also we do the wild rice outreach. We'll be doing that this year as well. And then also we will be doing fundraising because these grants that we have don't all pay for our overhead costs and all of our salaries. We run a pretty tight ship, and we've been running a pretty tight ship for a long time, but we do need a little bit of money for paying the bills and to continue the work that actually we get asked to do a lot of stuff that we do not have funding for. So if we have unrestricted money that comes from people like you or from the community members we are able then to sit on more teams that help the city with planning and things like that. There's not always funding to do, to sit on committees and things like that. We get asked to do a lot of stuff and we often can't do it because we just don't have the funding to do it. So the water trail project, we will be reprinting a map, and we are working on our third coastal grant, like I mentioned earlier, to detail a 5-year action plan and also help with this map. And a good question is, why do you love the river? And we're going to have a little discussion at the end here in a minute. But before we move on to that, I want to talk about joining our board of directors. We've been running pretty lean the last few years because of the pandemic, and we have not tried to recruit new board members. So right now we're going to start putting the word out that we would like to recruit a few new board members, and there's a process that people have to go through in order to do that. But if you love the river and you have some special skills and some time to help the Alliance, we would love to hear from you, and we can then give you the information that you would need to go through the process of possibly becoming a board member. You can, if you would like to support us in other ways, you can make a donation and you can become a member, or you can follow us on social media. We have other people who do things like Michael Anderson. He shows up at a lot of our events and he takes a lot of great photos. If there's anything you can think of that you would like to help us with, you can get a hold of Alyssa at outreach@stlouisriver.org. And now we can take some questions, and I am going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. So yeah, if first thing, if you would like to be a bronze sponsor on the map, there's a link that Alyssa posted in the chat. So go ahead and jump in there. And yeah, she's wrote on here, we need to receive the payment by Thursday at 4 p.m. That's tomorrow. We are right up against our deadline for getting this stuff to the printer. So it's kind of a fun way of supporting. You can get your name on the map. And the maps are awesome. They're really artistic and beautiful. And they've got a lot of great illustrations on there from Rick Kolath. And is there any questions that you have about the organization or about anything I've talked about?
Yeah, I would jump in there with a quick question and comment. My name is Zach Stewart, Natural Resources Specialist with Douglas County, and this is my first time attending a meeting in this group, and wow, how awesome. Awesome to see the energy and to hear Margie's talk and to hear about all the work that has been going on for so many years here already. It's fantastic. I've been emailing with Alyssa a little bit, and if it's okay, I'll take just like 1 to 2 minutes to announce a related topic in the estuary, and that has to do with Clough Island. As I think a lot of people in this room probably know, you all are probably more familiar with Clough Island than I, but in 2019, DNR received a GLRI grant for restoration out there, and with Douglas County, I'm just helping support it in a small way. And that involves organizing some volunteer events every fall to hand pull buckthorn out there. It's a beautiful island. There's some high quality wetlands, birds, some small beaches. And I think it's a really great opportunity to come out and visit the island by canoe, explore it on foot, and kind of strengthen that appreciation and connection to the river that several of our speakers tonight were alluding to. So I'll have some volunteer events September 17th and 30th. I'll put my contact information in the chat here. Be in touch if you're interested. And then also with such a vibrant group of people connected to the river here, if anyone wanted to get together and do an SLRA specific day out on the island, I'd be more than happy to organize boats or organize something like that. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for letting me listen in.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So again, he'll yeah, go ahead and put your link in there in the chat so people can get a hold. Is there another way if they don't catch it in the chat, how do they find you, Zach?
Douglas County website,
Okay.
AIS page, my email is right on there as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
I wanted to say that I've been really impressed with the website. I don't know if Alyssa's the one that can take a bow for that or not.
Yes, she absolutely can. She can
But
take all
I
the
think-
balls for that.
I think it's dynamite. I mean, it looks slick, it looks good, and the content is right on the money. And I don't know why anybody looking at it for the first time wouldn't really like it.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say is that, you know, I live out on Grand Avenue, just up from the Munger Landing. And I can't believe how many kayaks we see in the area now on cars. And I'm not sure where they're putting in, but that is something that I think we're going to see more and more of as the river is cleaned up. The US Steel site is being cleaned up right now. And they had a bid that I think that came in like 130 million for the sediment cleanup. And they scaled it back to about 100, and they've been working all winter out there. And they're pumping a lot of that stuff into big geotubes that's in the US Steel Creek Valley above the railroad tracks. And it's quite a sight to see. It's a big scale thing, and it'll clean up a lot of that contaminated sediment that's been on the river. And then the Clyde Avenue or Munger Landing will be starting this summer and going for a couple years. So that'll be another cleanup in this area that will really be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you want to see, you can't get at the US Steel one. You know, that might be something that the Alliance could maybe make some arrangements to get some tours of some of these sites. You know, we've been looking at it from the train for years, you know, at various sites that have been cleaned up. And you can't do that now because they've cut the railroad off for a couple of years, although the railroad will be restored when they're done. There was a threat at one time that they were going to cut it off at Mud Lake, at Margie's Mud Lake. But it's going to be restored and continue to use the crossing there. The other thing I wanted to say is that my wife and I went to see if there were any pelicans at Chambers Grove tonight, and we didn't see any, but I think there's some on the bay across from Perch Lake. There were about 3 pelicans on Perch Lake, but I think there was a group of pelicans that were across. I can't remember what the name of that bay is. That's right off, not on the main river, but there's one on the just right next to Fond du Lac. And then there was a bunch of swans there too. You could see some swans yet.
Thanks, Bill.
So that's it. I'm
Good,
done.
good information, Bill. And I got it written down, a possibility of taking a tour. And again, thanks, Bill, for all your work. It must be really satisfying over these decades to see people being able to actually get in the river and without getting a horrible rash on their legs or on their skin. And not be toxic. And the river has really responded well to all the work and all the care. There's so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people who have dedicated their lives to helping the river, and Bill is one of them. So let's give Bill a little hand here. So thank you very much. But again, you know, when you see things happening, and such a change on the river. I mean, some of you people in here, and I know a lot of people in the room here can talk about horror stories of what the river used to look like. And we are really in an amazing time in history and time in the present where people are coming here to get their kayaks out and see all of the beautiful riches that the estuary has to offer. Jane Newberg has a comment. We have a camper at River Place and miss seeing the train. Glad it will be coming back. Thanks for the great meeting. Thanks, Janet.
I just have a few things to share. It's a little past 8:30, so if anybody has to hop off, feel free. But I wanted to share that Munger Landing will be closed for the season. So you will not be able to access that. It will be on the map, but just know that that's not available. And then I don't remember if it was touched on, but we have started a Water Wednesday series, which is the fourth Wednesday of each month. And this summer, we're going to be having a few community paddles with some more information. I think Andrea did share a link earlier, but that'll be a really nice way if you're not an expert paddler and you want to go out with a group. It's a nice, comfortable way to get on the water and check out some new spots. So just keep that in mind. And then Chris did mention our community paddle that we'll be having in August as well. So if this is your first meeting, just keep coming to the live events because you'll realize there's a really great community. And now that things are opening back up, it's a nice way to reconnect with people. So thanks for coming.
Thanks, Alyssa, so much. Doug, what do you have?
Just wanted to clarify, the Munger Landing access will be closed for 2 seasons. So this year and next year. And the CD3 station, the waterless cleaning station for watercraft that's located there is either going to be relocated to Boy Scout Landing or to Rice's Point. And just want to encourage everybody to use that station to clean off their gear before and after they are going in and out of the water.
Thanks. And we also have a supplement sheet and also a link that will be on the map that will tell you what construction is happening so that you can plan your trips and your paddling or your boating accordingly. Janet also wrote, the Pokegama Landing is awesome. We like it for access to the river and also upstream on the Pokegama. So there's a lot to see out there, and you can pick up the maps. We have a bunch outside of our office in the DeWitt Sites building on the 2nd floor. And there's also a list on our website of other places that will have them. Richard, did you have anything you wanted to comment on? I see you turned your video on there, but is there anything that you wanted to comment on? Okay, hi, we're just waving. We're just waving. So I guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, but we would love to have you as members or any other support you would like to give us. It's a really great group of people, and it's a good way to connect with the river and the community. So anything else that I missed? Anybody? Thank you again for hanging with us. Again, special thanks to Margie for the amazing birding presentation. And we hope to see you in May at our next Water Wednesday that's going to be talking about the history of the estuary with Heidi Bach Johnson and Gina Temple Rhodes, correct? Am I right?
Heidi Buck Hansen and Gina
Hansen, not Johnson. Yep. Sorry. Okay, well, we're gonna log off then, and thanks everybody so much again, and hope to see you at our next event. Bye-bye.